This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Hello and welcome to The Edge, Trek FM show about Star Trek Discovery. I'm Mike, and a little later on, we'll be having a discussion about Star Trek Discovery Episode 8, Vis Pacem Bellum. But before we get into that, we have a little bit of news which we wanted to discuss. So to do that, I am joined by my friend Max. How's it going, Max?
All right. What's up?
Not much. Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
Yeah. So there was some kind of like exciting stuff that happened this week, and one of the things which I found to be kind of interesting about this news is how it relates to Discovery and what it means for Discovery and what it means about Discovery and all that good stuff. But the news is that CBS All Access is doing a Twilight Zone reimagining or whatever you want to call it. They're bringing it back, right?
The amazing Twilight Zone.
The amazing Twilight Zone, and it's going to be on CBS All Access, and it's going to be produced by Jordan Peele, who is maybe best known as half of Key and Peele, but who also recently directed the 2017 masterpiece Get Out. And the showrunner of this series is Marco Ramirez, who is the showrunner or co-showrunner of Daredevil Season 2 and The Defenders. So yes, okay, I know that you love, the Twilight Zone, and I know that you love Jordan Peele, and Get Out and all that good stuff. And I mean, you're a pretty big fan of the Defenders and Daredevil. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the Netflix Marvel shows for sure. Daredevil is one of the top 3.
Okay. So yeah. So what did you think about this news then?
My first reaction was like, could it be better than Black Mirror? And I don't know. I've been burned on this too many times.
Well, here's the thing about Twilight Zone, and I'm a fan of Twilight Zone for sure, and I've spent like the past couple of years going through the entire series, minus season 4, since season 4 is not on Netflix.
Why does it take you a couple of years? Like, they're not long. I mean, you can burn through a season in a day. I mean, what?
You can't burn through a season in a day. I mean, the episodes are short, but the seasons are long. Like, there's some seasons which are like 36 episodes long. But no, the reason why it's taken me a couple of years is because I've been watching 6 other shows simultaneously along with the Twilight Zone. I watch one episode from each show, and then I'll go back to the beginning and I'll watch episode 2 from each show.
No, it's cool. Everybody has things to do. I understand. I'm just saying, like, I've watched the entirety of the Twilight Zone probably 4 times.
Yeah.
And I've seen individual episodes probably around 100 times.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was the thing is I was pretty sure that I had seen all of the big episodes, for sure, To Serve Man and Eye of the Beholder and Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, all that stuff I've seen a million times. But it's also one of those shows where I felt like I knew there were gaps. I know there's a lot of episodes which I haven't seen. And just because I think it's like anything, it's like the original series where everyone remembers the masterpieces, but there's a lot of episodes which are really not that good, which no one ever talks about, and which aren't really in very heavy rotation. So, I just decided, like, okay, this is going to be the point where I'm just going to watch all of them and just call it a day, so that if there is some masterpiece in there which I've missed, I'll finally get to see it, and it'll be all covered for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Like my feeling was like the times when I've like actually like sat down and like watched all the episodes, like I came out saying like, wow, there are legitimately really good episodes that like I saw and thought that was good and then forgot about, and then when I saw them again I was like, those are really good. And like there are episodes that like stand out as like, like timeless landmarks and stuff, and there are episodes that have like stood the test of time, but mainly just because they don't have any like obvious anachronisms. Like, Invaders isn't that great, it's just like,
I don't know, I like that one.
It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty cool. I don't know, but regardless of any of that, the thing about it, right? The thing about the Twilight Zone, which I think is different from even Star Trek, at least in its current incarnation, is like, even if you have like a series which on the whole is not very impressive, since it's an anthology show, there's the chance that any given week you're going to get a masterpiece, and that would, in a sense, make it all worth it, right? And I mean, like the last time that we got a Twilight Zone, which was in the early aughts, it was run by Ira Steven Behr, and because of that, he brought on like a lot of Deep Space Nine people, amongst others, to write episodes. So we got to see what Ira Steven Behr's Twilight Zone looks like and what Robert Hewitt Wolf's Twilight Zone looks like. And, that was really cool. And here I'm curious to see what Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone would look like,
I'm for sure curious. I'm very interested to see what comes out of this, because like even when Twilight Zone fails, it's still interesting. It's still worth watching. Like the Twilight Zones that, have come and gone, like they were still totally worth watching. Like it's a shame that Twilight Zone is such it's a high wire act, Like if it doesn't, like blow everyone away every time, it can get canceled super easily. Like there is definitely something to be said for like the like low budget like requirements of a Twilight Zone show. Like, yeah, keep the sets cheap and work with small number of actors, because otherwise, it's not going to last.
Yeah, and there's also like the thing where you do need to have like a good team in place, because as much as I'd like to think that it's not, it is a TV show which runs by the same rules as every other TV show, where you have like a team who's assembling it on a week-to-week basis, like...
Yeah.
You look at the original and you're like, oh, that episode was directed by Richard Donner. Oh, that episode was written by Richard Matheson. Oh, of course, Rod Serling. But really, like...
you couldn't come up with a third Richard?
It was like, sorry. It was like a team of like three, people. Like almost all the episodes are written by Serling, and, Richard Matheson wrote a couple, and then there's a few other people here and there, but it's not like it was some sort of like crazy anthology where they were getting, I mean, the original series of Star Trek was more like that than Twilight Zone was, where they were bringing in just like crazy, elite level sci-fi writers from the era.
Well, that's like the craziest thing about the original Twilight Zone. It's like almost everything that we think about as being like definitively Twilight Zone was written by like three guys in a building once. Yeah. Like they wrote it all at the same time.
Right.
It's insane.
And I mean, that's how, I'm not quite up on the 80s show. I know Wes Craven was involved and stuff like that, which is cool. And Richard Matheson, and all that stuff. But like with the early aughts show where you had, Behr doing it, like in a sense, like that was kind of like, oh, cool, bonus, because like if you were to tell me in, the year 2003 that there was a Twilight Zone show and say like, who do you want to see, write an episode? I'd be like, well, I'd like to see Ira Stephen Bear. He'd probably be number one on my list. Then probably Robert Hewitt Wolf, and I guess Thompson and Weddell would be cool. And these are all the people who we got. I'd like to see Jonathan Frakes direct an episode. That's what we got,
Mm-hmm.
And I can't complain about that. But like here, it's sort of like the same scenario where it's like, well, Jordan Peele, that's perfect. I'd love to see Jordan Peele come in and maybe write and direct an episode, but there's an opportunity. There's always an opportunity with these anthology shows to like basically showcase like top level talent, because it's like, why not, call up someone like, I don't know, Christopher Nolan and be like, hey, you want to write an episode of The Twilight Zone?
One stipulation.
Why not?
It can't be 3 hours long.
Right. Or call up Cameron and be like, I know you're shooting 5 Avatar movies right now, but, while you're waiting for that one shot to render, would you like to come over here and direct an episode of The Twilight Zone?
Just copy and paste that stipulation to Nolan over to Cameron as well.
There you go. I mean, you could totally do this, or sticking it, keeping it in the CBS All Access family. Like, I remember reading a thing with Nicholas Meyer where he talked about like one of his biggest influences, sort of like where he learned to write or something like that, was by watching all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone on 16 millimeter in the library at the University of Iowa, when he was going to school there, and how that really sort of taught him about, like structure and everything. It's like, well, now, I mean, in some ways, I feel he's probably more passionate about Twilight Zone than he is about Star Trek. Like,
what they
Twilight
should get?
Zone was his Star Trek,
They should get Brian Fuller.
They should get Brian Fuller, but, he's doing his own thing with Amazing Stories, which was Spielberg's Twilight Zone. Not to be confused with Spielberg's Night Gallery, which is the pilot. But, yes, I mean, come on. Say to Fuller, like, come in here and write and direct an episode. I mean, like, I have a feeling most of these people...
It's going to be about a guy
who
decides to make a science fiction TV series, and the executives are, I don't know, let's say they're vampires. Who cares? Twilight Zone. We got to get to the point.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, if it's the type of thing where they don't have to commit, it's like we're not saying write a season of Twilight Zone, but just write an episode of Twilight Zone. Why wouldn't they do this?
Yeah, I mean, like, probably money, but like, it's like I'm so nervous about this because like it is such a complicated thing. Like I can't believe that Jordan Peele is willing to get involved in this because it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, let's hope so. It's the Twilight Zone, right? So. But
you don't want like the season 2 episodes to be about like how difficult and confusing it is to make an episode of the Twilight Zone. Although that would be pretty dope. I'd be into that now. That sounds rad.
I was going to say it.
A Twilight Zone about making the Twilight Zone? Whoa.
Oh yeah, come on. Twilight Zoneception, yeah. No, but okay, so I mean, we're talking about Jordan Peele here. We're talking about this being on CBS All Access. Now, this to me speaks, and why are we talking about this here? Why are we talking about Twilight Zone on this show?
Because it's CBS All Access. We got CBS All Access for this Star Trek show, and they're making it worth our while.
Exactly, and further than that, it's to me demonstrating that they're really happy with Discovery, right? Because they're following the same exact formula that they set up with Discovery. Like, okay, take an old science fiction property, which everyone loves, from our past, hire a top-tier filmmaker to put his name on it and sort of oversee the production, which will make fans happy. and then hire a solid showrunner who produces genre television, as his day job to, actually craft the show itself. And boom, you've got your product. Now, I mean, that was one of the things, which they kept on saying, back in the day, like, we're trying to find ways to keep Star Trek fans from canceling their All Access subscriptions when the show goes off the air, Well,
Yep.
And that's sort of where I think a lot of people see this theoretical con series that Nicholas Meyer is theoretically doing. That's where that fits in, as like filler between seasons. But I mean, Twilight Zone, it's like, boom, there you go, right there, That's cool.
Yep. I'm interested for sure. Like, there's no question I'm gonna watch it. I mean, I'm already sold. Like, my concern is purely for the people involved. Like, it just seems like on a human level, like a terrifying job.
Yeah. But I mean, any more terrifying than Star Trek? I'd say probably less terrifying than Star Trek.
I would say no. Well, no, and I wouldn't say so, because I feel like Star Trek, you've got a little bit of like a blanket to wrap yourself around in. You got like, I got the warp drive, I got the phasers, I got a guy with pointy ears. It's all good. We're gonna be okay. Like Twilight Zone, it's like every week it's a different thing. Like and like if it's not different enough, people are going to complain, and if it's too different, people are going to complain. People are going to complain. I'm going to cancel my Twitter. Just preemptively cancel your Twitter.
I guess that's true, but on the flip side, like I feel like the fans of Star Trek are much more obsessive about their show than the fans of Twilight Zone, and there's also a lot more boxes that you need to check with Star Trek in order to not make the fans mad. So, okay, now, I mean, we're talking about how this relates to Star Trek and how it's it looks like at least a direct response to the success of Discovery, and I mean, I think. If you look at it, Star Trek and Twilight Zone are sort of like the two big genre properties which, CBS owns, which they haven't really done anything with yet.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's others which you can think of. I mean, like the one that comes to mind, which I would be like, oh, yeah, do this, would be a Mission Impossible TV show, bringing that back. Well, that seems like the next logical step, no?
Been done.
You don't want to see that.
No, it's a joke because it started as a TV show. Like I don't know. I don't know if I can't picture the show. The movies have sort of like taken the name and made it into the Tom Cruise hangs from cables like franchise. Like I don't know what there is now of that show. It seems really like it's Tom Cruise hangs from cables or does like a stunt that, no one his age should be able to do, but he's able to do it because he's Tom Cruise. Like that's the franchise. It's not like a bunch of people who have skills who accomplish really difficult tasks in the world of espionage for some noble purpose. Like they were kind of, like they were the prototype for like a lot of other shows that like try to do a similar thing, like there's more kinship between Mission Impossible and Mr. Robot than there is between Mission Impossible and the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, and I'm sure you'd have to like sort of take that into account when you were doing like a reboot of the show. But there's also, I mean, it's a thing that which CBS has done a lot of. I mean, we've got Hawaii Five-0, we've got MacGyver. I know that they're working on a Magnum PI show from the creators of Hawaii Five-0 and MacGyver or whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, like this is a thing which they're doing, and it almost seems like, in a lot of ways, Mission Impossible, and who knows what the rights. I mean, just like with Star Trek, who knows what the rights are with all that stuff. But like, that seems like the next logical step to me, and maybe something which they could use to sell this app even further. But I really do hope that, the other thing which they do, in addition to, sort of like maybe possibly making this app like a genre platform, the place to go for, sci-fi nerds or whatever. I definitely would like to see more Star Trek pop up on here too. I really do hope that
get Darren Aronofsky to do Magnum PI. Just call it Magnum Pie.
That's good. Okay. But yeah, like if the Meyer Khan show is real, like I'd love to see that. I'd love to see little things where you can expand the universe and just do whatever. And who knows? I don't know. The future is bright for CBS All Access, and thanks in no small part or almost entirely to Star Trek Discovery. So, hey, it's exciting.
There was a very like I had a copy line. The future is bright for CBS All Access. And a word from our sponsor, CBS All Access.
All right. Well, enough talk about CBS All Access and
that great
Twilight
platform
Zone,
for Star Trek and soon Twilight Zone.
Let's talk about that show which is on CBS All Access, Star Trek Discovery, and in particular, Episode 8, Vis Pacem Bellum, or whatever it's called. Yep. So take it away, Amy and friends.
Thank you so much to Max and Mike for their wonderful intro to the episode. We are so ready to discuss this brand new episode of Star Trek Discovery, See Miss Pac-Man's Mozzarella. My, what is it? Latin is a little bit rusty. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. But
I'm pretty sure that's exactly it.
Yes. Okay. Good.
I love mozzarella.
Yeah, me too. I almost as much as I love this episode. Let's start right off the bat. We're going to start with some of the good, juicy, chewy stuff, just like mozzarella. We're going to start with the chewy stuff in this episode.
Who are we going to start with, Brandon? Should we tell the listeners who's on with us?
Oh, I guess we should. I just was getting excited to start talking about the episode. Yeah, Amy's here, and Justin and Tony Robinson. Hi, how's it going, everybody? Let's get going. No, I'm just kidding. Justin Oser, co-host of Earl Grey. Thanks so much for joining us, buddy.
Hello, great to be here.
It's an Earl Grey invasion.
Yes, it is. The great invasion of the EG. So this is your first time on the Edge main show, is it not, Justin?
It is not, actually, because Amy, Bruce, and Mike and I were at STLV, and we recorded one way back in Discovery's prehistory.
Oh, that's right, because you guys were in Vegas.
Yeah, we were.
So I have, but not in this kind of format where we're not all in the same room.
Yes, well, we're all in the same virtual room. And we're spanning the great divide of the Atlantic Ocean, reaching across to the man who's drinking the Earl Grey tea, Tony Robinson.
Hello, from the land of the Earl Grey tea. And
who was Earl Grey? What did he do?
Well, he discovered tea.
Oh, what a nice guy.
Is that like Earl of Sandwich?
Earl of Sandwich.
Yeah.
You know what I learned about tea? Like green tea and white tea and black tea are like all come from the same leaf.
All the
same. They're just cooked for different lengths of time.
I think Earl Grey was a commander of the British Army Armed Forces during World War I. But somebody will pick up on that and tear me to shreds if I'm wrong there. But I think that's where he... that's what he did, and I think he may have had investments in tea plantations, but yeah.
Well, we're not here to talk about tea. We're here to talk about mozzarella. So I think we should move right on. And the topic that I want to get right off the bat is L'Rell and Admiral Cornwall. That's where I want to start. So we had an interesting storyline with L'Rell and Admiral Cornwall, and I'm very curious to find out what you guys think of this, because I've got my own theories, and I think I'm in the minority on my theories. So Amy's nodding her head here, so I'm going to start with her. Amy, what do you think about this storyline between these two powerful ladies?
Absolutely love seeing them, and I hope that they do get to work together and do a little conniving and backstabbing with Cole. And I hope that L'Rell really was interested or if that was just an interrogation tactic. I can see it going both ways, but I think L'Rell's playing the long game, and so I think there's going to be something that's going to happen, whether it is with Cornwell or with someone else. But I don't think that she is pledging any kind of allegiance to Cole at all.
Mm-hmm. Justin, what do you think?
Well, I think implied in there is what I would say, which is Cornwell is not dead. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had an additional shot of her in there. But I love the interaction a lot. I think for L'Rell, sometimes it's hard to say what she's up to, because she said she comes from this house of spies and there's all kinds of deception. But I think that what she says about Cole and really despising him is true. How she's going to go about accomplishing what she wants to accomplish, I don't know. But I really liked seeing the interaction between the two, and the two of them screaming at each other has to be one of my favorite things I've ever seen in Star Trek. It was very cool, really.
Right after the Andorian antenna from that Enterprise episode, right?
Right, right. Because I think I said I like that shot as one of the best things. I said one of the best, not the best, but but anyway, no, I love that a lot. I love their interaction a lot. It was really nice, and it was kind of unexpected, because in the previous episode where you saw Cornwell, you didn't really know what was going to happen. So it was kind of a nice surprise that they looked like they were working together, or something different was going to happen than just being tortured to death.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm of the opinion, I think Cornwell's dead myself. Now, I know that they were vague on After Trek. I haven't watched After Trek. I don't watch After Trek, but
I watched it, and they said absolutely nothing until a little thing at the very end, she's dead, or is she? So right. I think that if she was really dead, it would be completely unnecessary to have that additional shot after L'Rell is in the room and she sees all the dead people, and then they have another shot to Cornwell. You wouldn't do that, I don't think, if she was actually dead. I think she's still alive.
See, and I interpret it as it's an extra shot to show that she definitely is dead, because she's not moving, right?
Well, and she's with all the other dead people.
See, but L'Rell didn't know. That was the sarcophagus room, right? Because there was
there was a little sarcophagus or crypt. I actually wondered, is Takuvma in that thing? I don't know. Yeah. Because there was this ornate thing that, I don't know what would have happened, because usually they were putting people on the outside of the ship. But it seemed like the room for dead people. But
right.
I think it was ambiguous, and my vote is that she's not dead, and we're going to see more of her, and that they were scheming together, because there's this part before Cornwell takes L'Rell's mek'leth where they say, "You're not what I expected. You're not what I expected either," which was almost like a way of saying, we can work together. Let's try to get out of this thing with Cole, and play you're going to kill me so we can get out of this. That's how it felt to me, at least.
Tony?
Wrong.
Well, I was just glad she didn't say human females are so ugly. Because I was waiting for that to happen, but it didn't.
No, that's just the Duras sisters that say that.
Yeah, they've got a line on that one. No, I mean, L'Rell is a schemer, and her whole reason for being is to plan and scheme and deceive. But the question is, who is she deceiving? Is she deceiving Cole, or is she deceiving Cornwell, or is she deceiving us as the audience? Not that she's aware that we're watching, but we.
Yeah, I was going to say right now she's deceiving Brandon, because I want to know what's going on here.
We're watching her every move. But she's an interesting character, and she definitely has a plan. It's an incredibly elaborate plan. I think she knows exactly what she was doing. That walk through the corridor when she's allegedly taking Cornwell to her shuttle or bird of prey or whatever it is that she's got that will whisk them away, seemed a bit too contrived. I mean, she was talking out loud. Anybody could hear what she was going to say. Good, nobody's listening because I'm planning to blow the ship up and get away from here, And it seemed contrived. And we've seen almost contrived fights like this before. I'll do this, you do that. I'll duck down here, you go for that, and it'll all appear to be very realistic. And so her being caught in the corridor seemed like it was planned to happen. And then she slams Cornwell up against this electric charge, or allows Cornwell to go for her. What's her knife called? A little...
I think it's a mechlith. The kind of shorter one.
Anyway, the whole thing seemed very contrived. The one thing that did get me, though, was when she drags Cornwell into that sarcophagus place, she's genuinely shocked to see the bodies of her former crewmates or
right.
You know.
See, that's what I interpreted they were, too, as her crewmates, because she knows all their names, right?
Or at least for her housemates, the people that are in her house.
Yeah.
Well, not even that, but those who pledged to Kuvma and therefore Vogue. Like those who were... That's what I understood them to be. And I have a question for you. Like, why were they killed so gruesomely? I mean, their innards were out. Like, what was the point of that? Just so that we knew they were dead and not sleeping? I mean, couldn't they have...
That was a message from Cole, I think.
Well, it looked like he was, chomping on them and continuing his, cannibalistic habits that he seems to like.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't him that ate Georgiou, right? That was
right.
No,
Vogue.
but I saw it as Cole wanted her to go to that room and see that as a message to her, and in order to anger her, in order to move his thing along, because I think Cole has his own plot, and definitely by the end of this, he's the one that's in control.
Absolutely. Like what we've got here. So, like, if we look at it from a point of view from each of the characters. So, I don't buy for a second that L'Rell wants to defect. I don't buy for a second that she's loyal to Cole.
No.
Okay? I think she's got her own agenda here, and it has something to do with Vogue. Okay, I'm not gonna address the Tyler Ash theory, because I'm still not convinced that Tyler Ash is Vogue, but there's something to do with Vogue, and so she's trying to advance her own agenda. Now Cole is completely aware that she's manipulating him, and yes, he knew somehow that she was planning on doing something with Cornwell, whether it was escape or whatever. And that's why he put those people in there. So maybe her intention was to get out of the ship with Cornwell, but I don't necessarily buy that. Like, maybe they could have ejected the sarcophagus with them in it, still being alive, and so she was altering her plan by killing her. Like, she had to think of it on the fly, and so that's why she killed her.
Yeah. You know what it seems like sometimes? Like, for Cole and L'Rell, they're doing these things to try to probe and see what the other's plan is, to kind of go along with it and see where it leads, and then adjust from there.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they're kind of mutually trying to manipulate each other and just see where it gets to, because Cole has a lot of power at this point. He's giving away the cloaking device, getting loyalty from a lot of different people and houses, and I think that L'Rell wants to see what she could do in order to poke at that a little bit and see where she can get to. I mean, it's still really unclear, I think, what her end game or her plan is or what she expects to accomplish, but I think they're kind of mutually playing this game to see where each wants the other to be.
Yeah, but he would be aware of her people, the House of Mokai. He would be aware of what they do, and they deceive, they bend the rules, bend the facts. They do whatever they do to get what they need. But he would be aware of the fact that that's what they do as a house. It makes an interesting question too. Is like in all the Klingon factions, how did these, if I use the term liars, ever get anywhere? Because that's all they do, is they scheme and plot and lie. And how do they get anywhere? Because somebody somewhere would say, enough, let's just get rid of them. We don't need these people. So what cause are they advancing in the Klingon Empire?
Mm-hmm. See, one of my predictions for the next episode is that we're going to see Vogue at the end of the next episode, right? And that's part of the reason why they moved this one episode up, is to maybe try and, is the right word, to quell this, how do you pronounce it? To quell this fan theory, right? Is that the word?
Yeah, but when they made the change for the mid-season break to be at episode 9, I don't think that they changed anything as far as the episodes. They just changed where the break would be because they felt it was a better, cliffhanger or a better thing to leave it on in a break for episode 9. Because I think when they had made that decision, they had already finished these episodes.
Well, okay, so do any of you guys watch House of Cards?
Yes.
No. Tony, have you watched the new one? Kate, at the first episode of season 2, right at the end of the episode, something major happens to a character. Okay, some character dies. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say what. All that I knew was when I read it going into it, I knew something happened because everybody kept referring to it as the episode where that thing happens, right? Because they were talking about it for spoilers and stuff, right? When is it okay to start talking about spoilers on shows that are dropped 13 episodes in a day? And for this episode, somebody dies. So my thought process on this is something major happens at the end of this episode that they were going to leave for us until January. But for some reason, they've brought this up. Because, the end of the episode with the Klingons are coming to this planet is a pretty good cliffhanger, right? For a mid-season cliffhanger. So what is it that they're bringing up? I think it's
just okay as a cliffhanger. They're coming. I think it's much better if what I think they're going to do is there'll be a big confrontation and a big battle, and there'll be a lot of consequences from that, and you have to be left at that mid-season finale with the consequences and thinking about where that's going to lead. I think that's a much more effective than what happened at the end of this one, and that's why they decided to do the break differently.
Right, but again, we're just guessing. They had originally planned this to be the mid-season end.
They had, and I think that it was planned that the episode would play out like this, but they felt it was stronger to end with episode 9. But you could be right, Brandon, because this is a shorter episode, and it seems like they may have edited out a couple of things. Mm-hmm. So it could be right, but I just had the impression that they just felt, as they were looking at the more or less finished episodes, that it was more consequential and a better cliffhanger to end with the next one.
Right, and again, I don't think that they changed anything. I think that they, again, intended to have that first episode of the next half of the season end with this Voke reveal, but now they're just wanting to jump it up because they maybe want that discussion to end or something like that. I don't know. That's my theory anyways.
Yeah.
Obviously, no, they wouldn't change it once they had the season written out, and that's not what I'm thinking happened. But I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe we can look it up while we're talking here, but I want to know when the announcement came for this move of an episode. I don't know if anybody knows that. And how many episodes into Discovery were we once we got that announcement? How early was it? So
I was thinking around 2.
Yeah, I just heard that we're going to add on another episode to come up to the mid-season finale. But you just took that information as great. That's cool.
Yeah.
But what they're intending to say, I don't know.
I've got it here. October 3rd, so that would have been after the 3rd episode aired.
October 3rd?
Mm-hmm.
So it was after the 3rd episode aired. So I guess, well, maybe I'm wrong with that theory then, because we didn't get Tyler until episode 5.
Well, yeah, but they'd already filmed and written the parts where Tyler was introduced by that point.
Yes, they would have.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know. I mean, it's like for the Voke thing, I don't know if when they're going to come back to that, if it's the next one, or they're going to wait all the way until the end of the season, or what's going to happen with that. In some ways, I hope you're right, and it's the next one, because I'm a little tired of hearing about it week after week. But I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, and I want to know what's going to happen if we find out that Voke is not Tyler. What's going to happen to the Twitter account for Real Javid Iqbal?
Its head is going to explode and it'll die. I guess.
Some guy leaving Twitter will turn it off.
Some guy leaving Twitter. Anyway, okay. Do we have anything else we want to say about the Klingons?
Well, I'll just say one other thing, which is I saw some comments from people that they thought the Klingon part was maybe confusing or not as impactful. And there's definitely some open questions, but I liked it a lot. But I'm probably a little biased because I've liked all of the Klingon stuff all throughout. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I look forward to more of that, and I think L'Rell's a really compelling character. The way that Mary Chieffo under that makeup just kind of emotes, and you can kind of see what she's trying to convey is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. So I want to see more of that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because they're supposed to end this Klingon war arc by the end of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be done.
It is.
So
I think they're going to do a time jump at some point.
Yeah, but they're going to have to address this Vogue Tyler thing soon.
Oh, by the end of episode 15, yeah.
You think they'll just by the end of 15? Yeah, that's.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's a new spin-off, Star Trek Vogue.
Trek Vogue.
Who knows?
Excellent. Amy, anything else you want to say on the Klingons before we move along?
Thoroughly enjoy it. Again, Laurel and Mary Chieffo, like, doing the makeup. They've had to now change her makeup, so now she's not just a Klingon, but she's a scarred Klingon. I mean, that's... Mm-hmm. And did they change her eyes something? They looked
It looks
more
like one eye
intense.
it looks like one eye is a different color now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's probably because of the burn, right? That's
Yeah.
how I interpret it.
She's got David Bowie eyes.
So does that bridge officer with the metal thing on her head.
No, they're all
Yes.
going.
She's had two colored eyes all the time. Well, since she's been on the Discovery anyways.
They're all starmen and women.
Okay, so let's jump into the major battle that we opened the episode with the Gagarin. Is that am I saying it right? The Gagarin?
Gagarin, I think.
Yeah, after
Gagarin?
Yuri Gagarin, the Russian cosmonaut.
Yeah, that's what I thought, the Yuri Gagarin. So we start the episode, we jump right into this battle, and, we find all of these Klingon ships with cloaking devices. And, this is a pretty strategic advantage for the Klingons. And, that's pretty rapid technological cloning, right? They haven't had this Klingon technology for that long.
Do we know how much time has passed since the previous episode?
Well, so let's see if we can get our timeline right. So episode 5 was Choose Your Pain, and episode 4 is... I believe the episode where we left Vogue, right? And so I got the impression that episode 4 was the day after episode 3, and a couple weeks had passed by the time we got to Choose Your Pain.
I think it was 3 weeks after that. So I think by at the beginning,
and then a month for Context for Kings. I think it'd been a month for
no, it was 6 months. 6 months. So it started out as May 2256 in the first two, and then it went ahead 6 months to November. And then
I got my titles wrong. So yeah,
3 weeks. Anyway,
Context
it was
for King was a month, and then Choose Your Pain was a month after Context is for Kings, because they'd been talking about how many successful battles they've had. So let's say maybe 2 or 3 months it's been that Cole's had this technology from the sarcophagus ship, right? So for that many ships, it wouldn't be just these 6. There's obviously going to be more, right? So what do you guys think about the Klingons having this Klingon technology, this cloaking technology right now? I know Amy has her green opinions on this one.
Oh, I do. I wonder how they are getting so many ships cloaked, and I always remember from TNG, they weren't having cloaked ships, right? Is that because of some treaty?
Well, there was a treaty with the Romulans that the Federation couldn't have cloaked ships. But when I think about the cloaking technology in this era, you think about something like the original series episode, the Enterprise incident, where it's just they just literally take this little thing, and just kind of try to plug it into their drive. Yeah,
they basically take Nomad.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it's something that's that small that they can just manufacture and just jigger some stuff around in the ship, I could believe it could happen within a couple months.
You think so? For that many ships, though?
Well, we don't know how many have it.
At least
besides
7.
These 6 or 7. Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, if they have, some kind of ability to manufacture things on a mass scale, I think so.
Yeah.
Once they know what the technology is.
It's going to be more than 7 for sure, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's probably hundreds or something or whatever by this point.
Yeah, but we're living in a universe where they have warp drive and they can build those things really quickly and all sorts of weird and wonderful technology. So replicating a device that allows you to become invisible, I'm not going to say it's not that difficult, but in the world they live in, they can mass produce them pretty quickly. Yeah. But they're only obviously sending them out into the Klingon factions, not anywhere else.
Now, the Discovery didn't succeed in this battle. Do you think that's more because of the timing of them getting involved in the battle? Or do you think that the cloaking technology is providing this much of an advantage to the Klingons? Because they were able to predict relatively quickly that they can't fire while cloaked. Right?
Yeah, but if you don't know where they're coming from, I think it's a significant advantage. I mean, also they're outnumbered, like 6-1, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, so when they get there, Discovery's the only other one. But they had already killed a couple other ships too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because didn't the Vulcan admiral say there was 2 or 3 other ships that were already there that had been destroyed? Because
like that, or maybe they were elsewhere.
Because Lorca asked him, he's like, why was it just Discovery there, or something like that? I can't remember the exact line, but he asked some kind of question like that.
He did.
Especially when there's lots. This is a huge, huge advancement for the Klingons, this cloaking technology.
It is. I mean, and it's to the point where in the previous episode, I think in Burnham's personal log, she said that they were winning the war, and now in this one, she's talking about that they're losing the war. So between those 2 episodes, something major has happened with cloaking device or something else, so that the whole tide of the war's turned.
But the cloaking device existed on the Death ship, the sarcophagus ship,
right?
And that kind of seems weird. Why would you have an advanced technology on a ship full of dead people, hiding in a bunch of asteroids in the middle of nowhere, well, on the edge of Federation space? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems weird. Were they developing it, or they'd stolen it and they were just testing it, or what?
Yeah, we don't know how Takuvma got it. There's going to be some comics coming out about Takuvma soon, so hopefully they'll tell us how he got that thing.
Yeah, I can't wait for those. I'm pretty excited to check them out. So... yeah, so I think we're in trouble here. And, at the end of the episode, so we end up with this plot development. Like, I'll go back to talk about what happens on the planet. But these Pahvins, is that right? Pahvin?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they activate this beam and call the Klingons there. And this has got obvious, similar... it conjures up remembrances of the Organians, right? Especially with how the aliens are. But the fact that these aliens have brought the Klingons and the Federation together on this one planet obviously conjures up memories of Errand of Mercy. Mm-hmm. Right? So, I mean, I want to talk about this one here now. What do we think's going to happen with this? Like, I want to go back and talk about Saru last. So, what are our predictions? Like, what are the Pahvins' intentions here?
Well, I don't know if the Pahvins have come across humans or Klingons at this point in their existence. Well, clearly they've just come across some human people and another alien chappie. So this is their first experience. They exist as energy beings. They don't exist in any humanoid format. And if the Pahvians are Organians, but by a different name, I don't know if there's a connection between those two. But I watched Errand of Mercy, and that's the conclusion I drew, that somehow there's a connection between these 2 races of people, perhaps like Vulcans and Romulans are connected in some way. But they seem to be these corporeal beings that can assume any shape, maybe just to pacify or make the visitors feel welcome. And they certainly seem very confident in the control of weaponry. So it could be that what's happening on the planet leads to the end of the war between the Klingons and the Federation. But these guys will be the ones that will somehow inject some kind of, thoughts or device that basically stops the Klingons annihilating the humans or the Federation people. Anyway, but that's what I was getting from it. That's the connection I was making.
Well, I'm just wondering why everyone is just taking the Pahvins at face value, that they want peace. I mean, Burnham, Tyler, and Saru come down, and the first thing that Saru does is take the weapons as ordered by the Pahvins and destroy their communicators. Like, that's some major control issues. And so why are the Pahvins doing this? It just makes me wonder, do they really want the peace? And why are they going about it so dictatorially? if that's
well,
a word.
They absolutely do want the peace. So we'll kind of transition into the Saru thing here. And the thing with Saru is, and the really interesting thing about this episode is that at the start of the episode, they're leading you to believe that the aliens have taken over Saru in a sci-fi stereotype trope, and now Saru is evil because he's inhabited by these aliens and he's not himself. And we find out at the end of the episode, and he admits it, no, I was myself. And the thing about Saru that I get about this episode, that I get out of this episode, is the reason why Saru is acting this way is because he's lived a life of complete fear his entire life. And when he communes with these aliens via touch, he gets a sense of peace that he has never ever experienced in his life. Like, when he's holding his head, like, it's basically migraines for him, right? Like extreme migraines when he's on this planet, and he's constantly in fear. For the first time in his life, he's not experiencing fear. That has got to be a huge relief off of him and how he's experiencing life, to just, for the first time in his life, to not be worried about anything. And so he breaks these communicators because he wants to stay on the planet. He doesn't want to leave because he wants to stay here where it's peaceful, right? This is such a place of peace. And with the final argument that he has with Burnham at the end of the episode, right, everywhere that Burnham is, she's taking away from him, and that's how he feels, right? We as the audience see it differently, but according to Saru, Burnham is always taking, and destroying Saru's life by taking all this stuff. She took his mentor. She took, on this ship, he thought he was rid of her, but now she's back on Star Trek Discovery, and now she's taking away his peace from this planet. And he says to her, "Why are you always taking things from me?" So he's trying to keep what he has, which is this sense of peace on the planet.
Yeah, so one thing that I think I disagree with that was said before is, I don't think the Pahvins are telling Saru to destroy the communicators and do all of that stuff.
Right.
I think that they've influenced him and they've given him peace. It's kind of like, we don't know what they're actually saying, but it seems like they're saying, you have a lot of fear, you're in pain. What can we do for you? What can we do for you to add some peace and harmony to your life? And so they take this away, and that causes him to say, I have this peace, and now I need to pass that along to the next person. And in order to do that, these people can't leave the planet. I think he's making those decisions on his own, and the Pahvins aren't telling him to implement things in that way.
Right. I agree with that for sure. Tony?
Well, the way I look at Saru is that it's easy to forget that he's an alien. And I don't mean that it's easy to forget he's an alien because he looks like an alien. He's tall and has weird features and whatever. But we humanize him. So we're expecting him to act and behave and think like a human, and forgetting that his thought processes don't work the same as our thought processes. So whatever goal he's trying to reach, or whatever place he's trying to get to, his journey there will be totally different from our journey. Yet it harmonizes with us because he's an officer on a starship, and you have to be something special to get there in the first place. But the way he approaches life, the way he sees things, he's seeing them totally differently. And I think we kind of forget that, because he sometimes comes out with statements that you don't expect him to come out. How some of the times when he met Burnham after the events on the Shenzhou, I kind of expected him to say, hey, that was then, this is now, don't worry about it, let's move on. I have. But he didn't. He keeps up this, you took something away from me thing, idea. And he's going with it. I think when he's on the planet, he's totally bombarded by a different set of impulses and influences, and it just blows his mind. It's like he's high on something. He becomes this totally different person. I think it's just blown the top of his head off. So I don't even think he's acting Saru-like when he takes away their communicators. But whatever he's found, he wants to keep it. And I don't know if he intends to keep his quote-unquote friends around him, but he's experiencing something fantastic that he needs to share it with somebody. And to that end, Ash and Burnham are going to be the first people he shares that with, whether they like it or not.
So, if you say that the Pahvans aren't doing anything to him, like, why is Saru having this immense amount of pain? What is it that he's hearing, and how do the Pahvans help him to relieve that? Like, there's got to be some kind of influence, and you're saying that they're not influencing him?
Yeah,
but if he was in pain, and now he's not, like, what was causing the pain in the first place? Because he wasn't in that much pain before coming to the planet.
Yeah, but he's been afraid all of his life and anxious
I understand
all of
that,
his
but
life.
he wasn't in that great amount of pain that we saw in the episode.
No, I think he is the kind of being that has super senses. He's alert and aware of things that on levels that we can't be aware of. And so he's hearing voices, or he's hearing disharmony, or he's hearing everything that's going on.
From
and
the
he just
planet?
Can't.
Right.
Yeah, from the planet.
But the
Yeah,
planet is peaceful.
Yeah,
I know, but
he has these. He's super sensitive to these things, and what it makes me think of is that even like on the Discovery, there's all kinds of sounds and things going on, and it probably like affects him, and he has to suppress that. But there is so much that's going on in terms of the communication and this music that they're making that it kind of drives him a little bit crazy because of the way that he is with his senses. So the Pahvans kind of interact with him, influence him, so he can deal with that and be calm about it. Because I think as a prey species, usually if there's a noise, a sudden noise, it makes you want to, jump and makes you anxious. And if there's a whole bunch of things like that, he can't even tell what's a threat around him. So I think they want to kind of take that down a level so that he's not as affected by it.
Right, and if you think about Troy for a second, being a betazoid, right, a half betazoid, she can sense things that other people can't, right? And so Saru can sense things because of these threat ganglia that he has, and so the natural harmonies of the planet are affecting him in a way that it doesn't affect anybody else, because he's the only one that has these threat ganglia. It's not that it's not an invasive force for anybody else. Just him, because of the threat ganglia, which are very sensitive.
I understand that, but why the pain?
I don't think he's threatened. I just think his senses are overloaded.
Exactly.
And he can't decipher what's going on, and he just wants it to stop so he can think, okay, that bit goes over there and this bit goes over here. But he seems to go through some kind of spiritual reawakening that we don't see what happens. He disappears in the middle of the night and has some memories, and then he comes in the next morning. Hey, anyone for coffee and eggs? I'll make them. It doesn't exactly say that, but that's what he's thinking, because I knew that. But he's a different person in the morning, and everyone notices it. Oh, you've got a spring in your step, or whatever.
Because the sound is gone.
Yeah.
Like, Amy, have you ever had a ringing in your ears that just won't go away?
Well, I've had a ringing, but it goes away eventually. I understand, but I don't understand the cause of it, and I don't understand why it's going away, and then his reaction to it. So I think there's something still with the Pahvans, and we just might have to agree to disagree.
Okay, well, the last thing I'll say on that is, again, so it's the natural harmonies of the planet that are just vibrating in a certain way that everything makes this sound. Right? It affects Saru, unlike anybody else, because of the threat ganglia. Why does it stop? Because he communes with the aliens, and he tells them in that vision, I'm an alien that senses pain. That's what I'm designed for. That I sense fear. I sense a threat. That's what I'm designed for. And after they've had this communication with them, they're like, oh, okay, so we can just change our harmonies, and that's not going to affect you anymore. Okay.
That's what I think. And as you say, now it's the first time he's been in a place where he didn't have to worry about somebody preying on him, and he feels quite, hey, I want to stay here. Maybe it's the kind of his nexus.
Yeah. So let's talk about their mission to this planet. So they're going to this planet, and they're like, this is where it kind of falls a little bit apart for me. They're like, okay, so we're going to go to this planet that, like, it has this natural bringing harmony, and we're going to go there and come up with some crazy anti-cloaking technology from it.
I think the idea is that they've been able to construct something on this planet to be able to, I guess, put out a signal at a pretty high strength, and they're thinking that they might be able to use that transmitter in order to be able to detect cloaked ships. I don't know exactly how that would work. They mention like it's a heightened form of sonar, but they seem to think that there's some way to be able to use this crystal transmitter to be able to do that. I mean, and clearly by the end of the episode, it's something that's extremely powerful to call the Klingons from, they're not nearby. They're a little ways away, right? And they're saying that this thing has increased its transmission. I think it's 10 to the 12, which is like trillions of times what it was before. So it's very powerful, and they may be able to find something in that to use it to bounce it off of a cloaked ship to be able to locate them. That's how I took it.
Yeah, and it's also beaming on two frequencies, one that the Klingons can hear and one that the Federation can hear. So it's clearly thinking, we as a planet, we're going to get these two guys together and have a face-off.
Amy?
So the transmitter was built by who?
The planet, really. I mean, the planet is like one distributed life form, and they built it. They must have also built the shelter as well.
Right, that's what I assumed.
The hut.
Yeah, the magic hut.
And they wove that cloth because you had to pull it back.
Yeah, they have good artistry.
Amazing stuff.
For smoke monsters, like, we got the Lost crossover here with the smoke monster, the blue smoke monsters. I can clearly tell that nobody here watches Lost.
No.
I've never seen it. Sorry.
No, you lost me on that one.
So, another question. So, Discovery dropped them off and left, and where did they go to?
Discovery?
To engage the Klingons.
Okay, so if they're going to battle, why would your security officer Tyler not be on the ship?
Because he's down on the planet on a mission, and they had to leave.
No, I think they got called into the battle on a kind of a...
Tyler shouldn't have been on the planet.
Why should the chief of security be there on the planet?
Yeah,
so that him and
he should
Burnham
be
can
on
kiss.
the ship because they're in battle.
Yeah, but they weren't in battle. They sent him down on the mission. And then while they were down on the planet, he had to go, and they couldn't contact them. They said that they could. That's why they had to go 30 kilometers away.
30 kilometers away.
Because they could, because the
interference from the signal. The
Yeah,
interference from the
couldn't
signal
communicate
was too great.
So,
I think so.
and
now,
plus, Burnham and him had to kiss.
They had to, did they?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that was important.
Wait, before we go any further, I saw a comment that I thought was interesting. Like these beings on the planet, they kind of look a little bit like the spores that you see in the spore drive, don't you think? I wonder if there's some relationship there.
Well, they had extra spory stuff left over, and they had to use it as a special effect.
I was actually thinking more of, I wish I could remember the episode name, the season 2 episode of Enterprise, where those blue misty things went in to Reed and Trip, and they ended up being malicious. Do you guys remember this episode? I know Amy
I've
doesn't.
Seen it, but
The Crossing, I think it's called, actually.
Yeah, that could be.
I think it's called The Crossing. Anyways, that's what I was thinking, was these blue aliens from there. But I don't know. I don't think it's the same thing, but that's what...
Yeah, that's the one where they're captured by this big ship, and there's these like non-corporeal beings that inhabit a couple of them.
Yeah. That's
I
the
can
one.
see that.
Anyway, I was thinking of that. But the other thing that I thought of, and I mentioned this when I was on Discovering Treks this week, I am so thankful that they chose the color blue for this, because, one of the most important and one of my favorite images from all of Star Trek is in the cage. When Spock and Pike beam down to Talos 4, and they've got those blue vibrating leaf plants, and they even used that sound effect, the almost transporter sound effect, in this episode, you know? Like, to me, that's a deep cut, and I just want to give a gigantic hug to whoever decided on the color blue and whoever decided to throw that little sound effect for the shimmering sound effect. Thank you. I love you. A great big sloppy kiss. Mwah!
Yeah, no, that was great, and the blue leaves looked gorgeous. So I know there's a lot of people that work on these episodes, but I wonder if Kirsten Beyer, who wrote the episode, is responsible for that reference.
Right. And they had mentioned that they were filming in Ontario. No, we don't have blue trees in Ontario. There's no blue trees in Canada. That's all.
What about giant crystal aerials? You have them?
Oh yeah, they've got a Tim Hortons at the top of that.
Okay. Because if everybody in Canada hummed a lot and just like hummed a tune, then you guys could be Pavonians or whatever it is.
Pavanians, Pavcanadian, yeah, something like that.
Can I just come back to Saru again, because there was a kind of a transition where he leads an away team, and then because of the storyline, his head gets all screwed up because he's hearing this overload of input and whatever. And then he succumbs to whatever it is that he succumbs to, traps his crewmates on the planet against their will, having told Burnham that she had the captain against her will, in the opening episode, whatever. But anyway, he's conveniently forgot that. And then he's back on the ship, and he's kind of almost normalized again. So there was two questions. Did he screw up? And will they let him go on a away mission again? Because he's a risk now.
He's definitely a risk. Like this, I think that Saru made these choices of his own free will. Like, based on the episode that I watched, Saru made these choices of his own free will. And, he's going to have ramifications from this, because we've got a different type of Star Trek storytelling right now, and there's going to be ramifications for Saru after this, right? Like, this is not the kind of thing that you just let go like you did in the 60s, right? Spock kidnaps the ship and takes them all to Talos 4, and it's like, it's all good. Like, there's going to be trouble for this one. And
I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what those ramifications are, and to see how that changes the relationship between Burnham and Saru, right? Because
he's a stickler for protocol, and he's a stickler for this is how we do it. So when you go on an away mission, you do not screw up. He just screwed up.
Anywho, well, those are the main topics I want to hit. Let's open it up for some final thoughts here. Amy, do you have any final thoughts on the episode?
Well, you did touch on, the callbacks to the previous series with the music and the colors, and I have really enjoyed that. And as pointed out many times, I don't always catch everything, but definitely with the sound effects, I like those and I remember those. I seem to remember those more than any episode, but a lot of the TOS and in my opinion, TNG sounds and coloring, and I really enjoy that with Discovery, and we saw that here. I'm very excited for the Klingons and to see what that's going to happen and what this Pavan race is going to do to the Klingon and the Federation. I'm very much attached to Burnham's character. I definitely relate to her the most. I know a lot of people, really prefer Tilly or other characters. But for me and what I see with Discovery, I appreciate Burnham's story the most and can relate with her and her struggle that she has with coming into Discovery and battling logic and emotion, and just her whole story and how she's interplaying with the crew. And we see them more one-on-one, especially in this away mission, and her interactions with Saru and Tyler and just everyone. I really, really like Burnham's character, and for me, that's who I relate to the most.
Mm-hmm. Tony?
One of the things that came out of this for me, and it almost had nothing to do with the storyline, was how far the United Federation of Planets and Starfleet has come in a very short space of time. From the time we in the timeline, from the time we have the Phoenix to NX-01, and now we have Discovery, you have a mixed crew on board. You have a mixed crew of aliens on board. It's the first. I think it's the first episode we've seen with a completely different alien race other than Vulcans on board. And then I was thinking to myself, but the Klingons don't have alien races sharing the bridge, and the Vulcans don't have alien races sharing the bridge. It just seems like the Federation, for some reason, and I guess by Federation I really mean Starfleet, and by Starfleet I really mean humanity. So all us humans are flying around in starships, but we've got to make way for different types of aliens, and I thought that's interesting. But these other races don't do it. So are they more exclusive, or are they racist by definition? I don't know.
Speciest.
Yeah.
Justin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have a few. So, I mean, first of all, we talked about it a little bit, but the planet and the beings and like that whole setting is just beautiful. I've actually seen this episode 3 times since Sunday, and definitely one of my favorite parts is just trying to kind of drink in and feel the planet and the beings. I think it's just like really a beautiful surrounding that they created, and I think there's a lot. I mean, I think we've known for a while this was going to be the Saru episode, and I may have expected something a little bit different than what we got, but I did like what we
You're not the only one from what I've read online. Everybody was expecting something a little different, I think.
Everybody was expecting something a little different, and like honestly, one of the things that I had expected was that there might be some flashbacks to other Kelpians, his home planet, other experiences, things like that, and I think it's received some criticism because of that, but after rewatching it a couple of times, I think it's really effective and a strong episode. It's not one of the stronger ones of the season, I think. It's probably one of the weaker ones, but because we've gotten so many strong, excellent episodes, I think that's just, qualified. I think it's still an excellent episode, but a lot of the other ones are so good that this one looks weaker in comparison. And it will be interesting to see some of the ramifications for Saru going forward. One thing we didn't talk about is that Stamets is grumpy again. What's with that?
Oh my goodness, we didn't even touch on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he, maybe he's just tired from all the stuff with Mud because he experienced that like 50 plus times. Maybe something else is going on, but I want to see where that happens because Stamets is one of my favorite characters now. I like him a lot, but like Amy, Burnham is actually my favorite character, and I think her journey is really fascinating. And she drops, and like Burnham dropped something in the episode that I didn't think about, because I thought when she came on board, Lorca was able to kind of use his influence to forgive the charges so she wouldn't have to go back to prison for life. But she's telling Tyler, when this war ends, I'll have to go back to prison for life. That kind of surprised me a little bit. I know they'll have to resolve that, but I don't know quite where that's going. But I mean, overall, I think it was a really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I think next week's episode, because it is this mid-season finale, there's going to be some major stuff happening that this one and a lot of other ones are setting up. So I'm really excited to see that one on Sunday.
Well, I read a spoiler that next week's episode is just a remake of Move Along Home.
Oh, that would be fine too, because I love Move Along Home.
Okay, well, I appreciate everybody giving me their final thoughts, and now that we've all talked about our final thoughts on the episode, we got to talk about Stamets. I can't believe we didn't talk about Stamets. I'm opening up this can of worms here, everybody. Here's your bonus extra content for the Easter eggs for the episode. What's going on with Stamets? I know I have my own theory. Amy?
I was so since I've done postcards, and you may have listened or not, but a lot of fans think that
hasn't aired yet, Amy.
Yes, it has. It aired yesterday.
By the time this airs, yes, it will.
Of course, I haven't listened to it because it's Wednesday.
I'm talking to the listeners now, Brandon.
Sorry, I thought you were talking to me. For some strange reason.
She's talking to the future, not the present.
See what I just did there? That's the thing. Stamets is now He's now able to not only move like through space, but also through time. And so when he calls Tilly captain, like he was seeing that sort of like in parallels, like a parallel universe, that the captain was there and he saw the captain, but in our timeline that it's Tilly. So there's that confusion because he's not only going through space and moving the Discovery through space, but now he's going through different loops of time. So
I had a simpler explanation when I first saw it. I was like, is he so out of it that his vision's blurred and he thinks that's actually Lorca?
See, and I had a better thing. My theory is that he saw the future. He's able to see the future. And in the future, Tilly is the captain.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, like 20 years from now or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
fine. But that's a direct callback to what we got in episode 3 when she's like,
Oh, it
I'm
totally
going to be a
is.
captain someday.
Exactly.
Totally is.
Stamets for me is an interesting character because I think what he's going through is almost the way Data goes through. I want to be more human. Give me an emotion chip. Then he goes crazy, gaga, loopy, and then he's Geordi takes his emotion chip out and he returns back to normal again. I'm not saying that's the comparison, but it's almost kind of like that. But he's probably more likely getting a grip on all these experiences that are happening to him. I mean, you first experience this ability to be able to see up and down the timeline and be everywhere at once, because these spore-y things are like little phonetic particles and it's all quantum physics-y stuff, and you're everywhere at once at every moment in time. And then you get yanked back to reality, to this moment in time. So his head is all over the place, and now he's kind of getting a kind of a grip, and now he's returning to his normal grumpy self-assured self.
I never got the impression that the spores allow you to be like everywhere at once or access other dimensions. I thought it was just the case that it allowed you to quickly jump from one place to another. Not that you're any place simultaneously or that you're accessing any other dimensions. It's just kind of like a shortcut through this network, almost like a really fast kind of subspace corridor or something.
So for me, it's the tardigrade DNA. It's not the mycelium network. It's the tardigrade DNA that's in him, right? Because
which allows him to converse with that network. That's what they said, right?
Right, but it's also affecting him. I'm tired and I'm frustrated of people calling Stamets, like in the last couple episodes, oh, he's high. He's high on the mushrooms. I'm just tired of hearing that, right? Because it's not the mushrooms, it's the tardigrade DNA, right? And because after he injected himself with the tardigrade DNA, what happened? Oh, this funky weird thing with the mirror, right? Which is pulling him out of time. Like this is some weird time loop. And that's like, to me, that's what's going on with him. And he's confused because he's experiencing these different timelines, and that's why he's getting cranky. And, why is he capable of doing it, and why was it hurting the tardigrade? Well, I made this comparison on Discovering Trek. It makes me think of the enemy within in the original series. Right? Why were they able to successfully integrate Kirk rather than the unicorn dog? Well, because the unicorn dog was just a dog and he wasn't able to comprehend what was happening. But because Captain Kirk was a human being and able to reason, he's able to get joined in the transporter, right? How is Stamets able to sit there relaxed in his Jesus pose, right? He's able to sit there relaxed in his pose for the tardigrade, or for the jumping, because he's able to reason what's going on. However,
I think it's because
him.
it's in his arms and not his nipples that they're doing it. That's why
possible. I mean, like, yeah, I don't like my nipple pinchers, right? But I don't know. That's what I think. Yeah. It's because he's able to reason, but the tardigrade DNA is starting to affect him more than he realized. That tardigrade splicing. So that's what I think.
Maybe he'll turn into a lizard.
A lizard, like Patrick Carlin would love that. So, anywho. Okay, right on. Well, that's it now. That's definitely our final thoughts. We're gonna shut her down. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Tony, where can people find you when you're not crushing communicators and forcing people to stay with you on the planet?
Okay. Well, I encourage everybody to listen to our other podcast, one of our other podcasts, which is Continuing Mission, where I talk to people involved in the construction and filming of fan-made movies. So Continuing Mission, folks, have a look at that. But you'll find me on the Babel Conference, which I'm sure people know by now is our Facebook page for people who want to chat about all things Trek. And on Twitter, I am Shamrock165.
And Justin, where can people find you when you're not kissing Burnham?
Ooh, well, you can. Oh, well, you can find me elsewhere on the network. Well, you can find you can find me elsewhere on the network, co-hosting Earl Grey. That's our Next Generation podcast with Amy Nelson and Richard Marquez. We have a lot of fun talking about TNG every week. And you can also find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. I tweet a lot about Star Trek Discovery, and currently tweeting out also my Season 4 rewatch of The Next Generation. And you can find me hanging around the Babel Conference on Facebook.
Excellent. Well, talking about how Admiral Cornwell is definitely dead, no punch bug, no returns, is not the only thing we've been discussing here on the network. So please take a listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
She's not dead.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
The hardest thing I've ever done, I mean, as a tie-in writer, reconciling canonical differences or apparent canonical differences is one of those things where, as a tie-in writer, you learn, you see it, and instead of getting angry about it the way a fan does, you look at it and you go, oh, that's a story possibility. How do I explain that? What do I do with that?
The 602 Club.
I don't know. There's just something completely different about this movie than anything I've seen this year and maybe in a long time. And maybe it's just, I feel like this movie just takes the time to do all of that stuff. And it's not afraid to be art.
Warp 5.
And good to know that you have already failed one of my questions for Something Geek. There's 5 Xindi that are still alive and 1 species that's extinct.
He's not that bright.
Jot that down. I thought there were 8. I've always thought there were 8. See, it was confusing. I'm confused.
To the journey!
I kind of figured he would just be able to, like, make another mobile emitter for the Doctor. Wouldn't he?
He'd use his nanoprobes for that.
Yeah.
Right, put some nanoprobes on the job, they'll make the Doctor a new mobile emitter.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Lickety-split.
Can I have my mobile emitter? Oh, yeah. He never asked, though, did he?
No, he didn't.
If he'd asked him, he'd just been like, oh, yeah, here you go.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all of these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. That really helps others find us. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab that RSS link. We, of course, would love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place is on the Babel Conference. That's our listeners group on Facebook. Type in Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it will come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, and we'd love getting your emails, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. Brandon, where can people contact you on the network and on the interwebs? Because you're a pretty popular person out there.
Right on. Well, when I'm not interrogating admirals and then killing them, you can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Mutala. You can find me here on the network with Warp 5, which is our Star Trek Enterprise podcast. And we've got a wonderful episode with Amy coming up.
Yay.
Very soon. We've already recorded it. It's going to be out, early December it'll be out.
It's going to be so good.
I hope so. I hope I don't get roasted. You can also find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, where we talk about Alfred Hitchcock movies, and we're right smack dab in his silent films right now. But we have lots to say on them, so be sure to check that out. And our latest episode, which will be coming out at the end of November, which is recorded, has Brandy Giacola from The Edge, so she was joining us for that. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not kissing Tyler?
Well, you can find me here on the network. I do this lovely show with you. Sometimes I wonder why. I do Postcards from the Edge, and that is a very fun, well, I think it's fun, podcast where we talk about the fan response for each episode, and I get to have different people join me each week, and so that's a really fun thing, and I get to know what all you fans are talking about and thinking. I also, as Justin mentioned, co-host Earl Grey, which I absolutely love. If people don't know, I love The Next Generation. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is on the Babel Conference on Facebook, so look for me there.
See, the last time we podcasted together, Amy told me she thought Tyler was hot.
He is.
See? So it's not that bad of a thing.
No,
anyways,
it isn't.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of quatloos to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month, and we really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM. We'd like to send a very special thank you to the wonderful associate producers of The Edge. We have Mr. Norman C. Lau, Mr. Tony Robinson, hey, we know him, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoab Mirza, and Richard Rutledge. You guys are the bomb. We appreciate everything you do for us. Well, is that it, Amy? Are we done?
I do think so. For this week, we've got more.
One more. It's going to be a crazy one. It's going to be a cliffhanger. We're all going to be crying because it's going to be sad that we're off for like 8 weeks or whatever it's going to be.
Insert Best of Both Worlds music here.
Yes, and I'm not going to do that because I got really tired of hearing that on 154 episodes of the original Earl Grey Clue. Good night.